We made USAA insurance for veterans like James. When he found out how much USAA was helping members save, he said,
"It's time to switch."
We'll help you find the right coverage at the right price. USAA. What you're made of, we're made for. Restrictions apply.
The Shark Deck.
Marjorie Taylor Greene referred to New York City as disgusting, filthy, repulsive, and a terrible place. Seth Meyers joked, "How dare you say that in the city that's home to Fox News headquarters?" I am Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Seth added, "The joke's on you, Marjorie. Once you think that, you're officially a New Yorker." If you're a New Yorker, you totally get that one. I agree. Congratulations to Chris Rock. He set a record. Selective Outrage became the stand-up show that was the most streamed in any week. It amassed 798 million minutes in the first week it was released. That breaks the record held by Dave Chappelle's 2019 Sticks and Stones, which had 573 million viewing minutes. Wow, Sarah Silverman, she's getting her own comedy special. This one will be on HBO. The release says it will feature all new material. Yeah, that's what comedy specials are. Taped in front of a live audience. Yeah, that's what comedy specials are. At the Wilbur Theater in Boston, Massachusetts. The suit over at HBO said, "We absolutely love working with Sarah. She's truly one of the all-time greats, and her new special is smart, bold, as insanely funny as ever." Sarah Silverman said, "I love working with Nina the suit over at HBO. She's a great support system, and we trust each other. She's got lips, that one." Okay. Rolling Stone caught up with Leslie Jones. She's got a new memoir coming out. I hate the title. It is Leslie F *CKING Jones. I'm not cleaning that up. That's how she's spelling it. So I'll call it Leslie Effing Jones. And it's just a bad title because say you have a podcast or your Entertainment Tonight or one of those things, it makes it hard to even say the name of your book. It's a bad choice. Call it anything else. Anyway, Leslie Something Jones will be out September 19th. Leslie recently told People magazine, "Everybody's life is a story. Everybody's life has had moments and trials and mistakes and things that you go to who make you are who you are today. And I want everybody to read it and go, holy stuff. She just didn't fall into comedy. She had to work for that stuff. I want people to learn if you have an inspiration and a desire to do something, that's effing great, but you got to work." She explained that while the stories are topics that she's really not ashamed of, I also wanted to do it while I still remember everything. She's now 55. Not that old from my perspective. I started remembering moments where I was like, oh, wow, I haven't thought about that. I need to get that on paper or something because I didn't want to forget the actual details to it. So it was a lot of that too. I just feel like people ask me a lot of questions on how to do that. And I was like, I wonder if my story will be interesting. And it turns out it'll be very interesting. At this point in my podcast, the raw recording time is 3 minutes, 56 seconds. It'll be shorter because of the edits in your version. And I have gotten texts from 5 different people since I started. Every 2 seconds, bleep in my headset. Martin Lawrence said, Eddie Murphy is the reason, along with Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy is the reason I do comedy. Well, those two. Eddie took it to rock star status. I was like, wow, I've never seen that. That's my man, Eddie Murphy. Martin Lawrence says he misses the stage, but he's in no rush to return. I let everybody do their thing. Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock, everybody doing their thing. I love it. And I just wait for my time. I don't really worry about what everybody else is doing. I just wait to see when God lets me know when it's time for me to go back out and bring some laughter to the world. He discussed how comedians such as Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock and Kevin Hart have found themselves receiving pushback for some of their jokes that communities such as the LGBTQ plus community have found offensive. Lawrence said, I'm not going to change who I am and the way I do things, but I'm going to respect the fact that people do have feelings. If I can do something a different way and get the same effect that doesn't hurt, then I can do it that way. That's what I've come to learn. When I was young, I would just go for it. I just did it my way. But as I got older, I learned to respect a little more. Josh Johnson spoke to NOLA.com about being a writer on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. By the way, I saw a clip of Jimmy Fallon doing something called, what do you call it? What's Up Dog or something like that. It's just stupid pet tricks. I mean, blatant ripoff. Love Jimmy. And as I shared on the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast group, like a week ago, Jimmy Fallon hosting Letterman's show way back 20 years ago. Fallon clearly liked Letterman. Well, Fallon clearly likes Letterman. Total lift. Anyway, Josh Johnson said writing on The Tonight Show cured him of any romantic notions he had about creativity. He had to write 75 jokes a day, and that didn't mean the 75 jokes got on TV. All the other writers were also writing 75 jokes a day. Johnson said, if Jimmy ends up doing 3 of your jokes in a show, you feel like you crushed it. Now I have a really thick skin when it comes to jokes not working. Sometimes my joke is the best joke, and sometimes it's simply not, and I've learned to recognize that. He will be at Tipitina's, 501 Napoleon Avenue, if you're down that way, on the 13th. That's Thursday, 7 o'clock. Beth Stelling spoke to the Union about her barista days. She said, I usually like to get to a city and find the best coffee because I used to manage a coffee shop in Chicago called Dollop. Then my first job in LA was Intelligentsia Coffee. I had to train for like 8 months before I could even touch milk. I am barista-ly trained. She said, a lot of my comedy began to be fueled by how tired I was of hearing male comics talk about the same things. Audience members that were women in comedy clubs sat for decades next to their husband, while a man was on stage ripping his wife, ripping on women, talking about how she belongs in the kitchen, and we laugh and laugh. Now there's more women on stage basically sharing our side of it, and they always say that we can't take a joke. We took a joke for decades. It's definitely a shift that's happening in the comedy world now that is self-producing, the benefit being that you own the material. They license it for 2 years, and then you could take it elsewhere. The thing is, you have to fund it yourself. I'm just going to be shopping around my fine wares once it's all colored and sound mixed. Then once I sell, I'll be able to tell everybody where to find it. Molly Shannon said she would host SNL again if asked. Oh my gosh, yeah, of course I would. Yeah, I would say yes, it's funny, but I forget live variety. It's exhilarating, but it's also hard. It's like 5, 4, 3, 2, go. Sometimes when I think about that, I think, oh my God, you'd have to be kind of crazy, you know? It's like a gymnastics routine or something. It just feels like high stakes, the way it's like a mountain climber would feel, or some type of adrenaline junkie. Rob Delaney told Chortle he has no interest in returning to Catastrophe. Would he ever make another season? He said, I hope we don't. Only because people reboot everything now. Let it be. We stopped doing it because we had done 4 series that we were proud of, and we could smell that we were getting in danger of repeating ourselves, and frankly, we said a lot about marriage and parenting in there. Maybe Sharon might have some ideas. I don't. I had scraped the barrel and was like, it's all I know. Veer Daz says, if you commit to the idea that you're a global voice, which I have, it becomes a little more important just to do you rather than reverse engineer for an audience on an algorithm. Yeah, I hate those people. They'll like put like Joe Rogan in their podcast title 3-4 days in a row. Jerks. You just have to be like, this is who I am, and this is what my life experiences are. Hopefully when you come to the show, I'm taking you somewhere that you've never been before. The fact that it might possibly be alien to you goes from being a drawback to almost being your strength. By the way, if you'd like to hear his comedy, it is the lead-off clip in this week's Weekly Comedy Thing. The Weekly Comedy Thing is a show I host on the Live One app. The Live One app is free. On it, I tell stories like this, perhaps even this exact story, and then play a clip by the comedian. It's the Weekly Comedy Thing on the Live One app. Virdaz said, what you have to realize is with most comedians, we're just telling jokes, right? At the end of the day, your experience will imprint itself onto your material. Perhaps as you get older, you get more conscious about the world that you live in, and politics becomes more important to you. When you're 21, it doesn't matter who the president or prime minister is because you've got homework, parents, and other stakes. But when you're 40, it does matter. So that's when it makes itself into your material. And good news, everybody has stopped texting me. One way you can support the show, become a premium subscriber on Apple Podcasts. Open up the Apple Podcast app. That's the purple one that says podcasts. Look for daily comedy news, and they'll be like, hey, you want to be a premium subscriber? And you can go, yeah. And then what happens is for $5 a month, first month is free if you want to test drive it, see if you like it or not, you'll get the episodes early and ad-free. So what do you mean by early, Johnny Mac? For example, this episode that you're hearing right now, you could have listened to on Sunday. Most times during the week, I'll put out, quote-unquote, tomorrow's episode around 4 p.m. Eastern, and the weekend episodes are usually up on Friday morning. Plus, they're all ad-free. $5 a month, premium subscriber, Apple Podcast. Check it out. Ken Jeong is going to lead a new Fox single-cam sitcom based on Dan Harris's popular book and podcast 10% Happier. Ken Jeong is a family man and mid-level juice company executive who finds himself in a major life rut. After a panic attack at work, he has an epiphany where he realizes he needs to change everything about the way he lives in order to become 10% happier. You may know Ken Jeong from Community. Well, Vulture is taking a look at who is and who is not in the Community movie, right? Who's in? We know that Joel McHale as Jeff, Danny Pudi as Abed, Alison Brie's Annie, Gillian Jacobs as Britta, Jim Rash as the Dean, and Ken Jeong, yes, he'll be back as Ben Chang. You didn't mention Troy. Isn't Donald Glover in the movie? Dan Harmon is hinting there's no reason to worry about that. Harmon told Variety back in November. Glover is down to clown. Man, I would not want to think about making the movie without Donald. Last month, he told Variety, Donald is coming based on word of mouth. He explained at the time the deal just might not be official enough to confirm that Donald is in. What about Shirley? No mention of Shirley. Yvette Nicole Brown. How come Shirley's not in the movie? In a tweet, Joel McHale tagged both Brown and Glover, wrote, it's happening. Congrats. Hashtag community fans. But that doesn't mean anything. Plus, instead of tagging Gillian Jacobs, he tagged the X-Files' Gillian Anderson. All right, what about John Oliver? Remember Professor Ian Duncan? Is he in it? A Reddit user claimed that they were at a taping of Last Week Tonight and asked Oliver about it. And John said he wasn't sure if he'd be able to do it because he's busy with Last Week Tonight. But he said his part is so insignificant in Community that it isn't important if he's in it. He said he'd like to do the movie if he could pop in when he had a break from Last Week Tonight. Yeah, you only need him for like 30 seconds, right? Make that happen. What about Jonathan Banks? He played Buzz Hickey. What about Paget Brewster's Frankie? What about Keith David's Elroy? It is believed they're not in it. Paget Brewster has been tweeting that she would love to be in it, but hadn't been asked. Haven't heard from Keith David, and Jonathan Banks doesn't seem like he's on Twitter much. What about Chevy Chase's Pierce? Dan Harmon said, that might be out of my hands. That might be something I signed for with an insurance company. Chortle reviewed the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. They wrote it's a Monday night in one of the comedy festival's less glamorous rooms. But Sam Gorlap bursts out with a cheesy but cheery Hamilton parody song and sparks the venue into life with his good-natured energy. Feels like it's going to be an entertaining hour, but those high hopes ebb away the longer he's on stage. He's got charisma. He's got verb. He's got an easy rapport with the audience. He's got very little material. Wow, what a review. This is great. That his delivery is so strong means that it takes a while to notice that he doesn't have any material. He can make almost anything sound like a joke. The sturdy rhythms emphasized by his easy, unaffected laugh at his own content, but what he's actually saying so often amounts to very little. He talks about him getting up the moment his alarm goes off, but his girlfriend needs several snoozes. How about midweek weddings are a pain because you have to take days off, and doesn't picking a streaming show to watch together take a long time? Too often, it feels like he's just telling us stuff in a pleasingly cheering way, but overlooking the requirement to punch it up with gags or exaggeration. It's a bit morning radio DJ. I hate those people. Some of those people podcast from their basement. Jerks. There were some decent setups, especially self-effacing routines from his childhood, including a bizarre birthday surprise from his mother arranged for him, and the entire impractical way his sister transformed their backyard for her wedding. But once he's established these scenarios, he finds himself with no place to go. Quite a few routines end with him chuckling. All right, we'll just move on. Sounds like they didn't like Sam Gorlap's Sam, but different. Sarah Schaefer's show is called Going Up. She puts all that she sees wrong with the comedy industry in a one-pointed hour. She presents comedy as a cross between a dodgy pyramid scheme and a Scientology-like sect that rewards devotion to unquestionable principles. Presented as a seminar, this is our introduction to the cult, as she outlines what the faithful must do to slowly advance up the ladder from open micer to legend-like stadium filler, negotiating shifty characters and the random prejudices of gatekeepers, all of whom she calls Jeff. Those in the know will already be aware of concepts such as clapter, yes, clapter, when a stand-up gets a round of applause of approval rather than laughs, or be familiar with comics who deploy all manner of pseudo-scientific excuses to blame the audience for their own failings. Whether those who are not comedy nerds would be interested in the minutiae of this world is moot. Expanding this idea to an hour is a stretch. Rough reviews today. Sarah Schaefer, Going Up. It's at Melbourne Town Hall until April 23rd. No shows on Mondays. Let's take a quick look at the festival. Catherine McClintock's show is called Burst. Hopes and dreams are like bubbles. Eventually they burst and they don't pay the bills. Upside News called it sassy, filthy, and very funny. All right, let's try and play a clip here. Hopefully it's not too filthy, you know? I got a podcast to try and keep clean.
It was so bad that another mom gave me antihistamines to help her sleep. Like a child-appropriate drug deal going round row 64. I was like, thank you, but have you got anything stronger for me? Diazepam, lorazepam, temazepam, ketamine could really use a K-hole right now.
Okay. Some of these clips people pick are so weird. Let's do one more. Mel Buttle's show is called Let Me Know Either Way. This show is an ode to our modern heroes, like people who can say, my left, your right. Wow, color me impressed, she writes. Let's listen.
Hello, Melbourne. Wowee, this is nice. Nice to be here, isn't it? Because I live in a place called Ipswich in Queensland, so woohoo! Yes. You know, it's nice to be somewhere nice. If you haven't been to Ipswich in Queensland, it's a bit pov, right? It's a bit of a rat hole. Like, I don't know what your nearest rat hole is. Let's just, I don't know, we'll say Sydney for now. There's no purebred dogs, you know, those suburbs where everything's a Staffy Cross. Staffy Cross Kelpie, Staffy Cross Border Collie, you know, Staffy Cross Labrador. Some of the kids are Staffy Cross. No, there's no purebred dogs. We can't afford them. And if you do see one, it's a German Shepherd. That's a police dog. Out of the way. He's got a job to do. We also don't have any oodles. There's no oodles, there's no cavoodles, there's no moodles, joodles, labradoodles. They don't exist. We can't afford those either, right? This is the thing. I've got a bit of a beef with oodles. You know what you don't see anymore? Just a plain old poodle, do you? They're gone. You will not spot just a standard, plain, boring poodle. I reckon there is one male poodle left in Australia somewhere.
That was good. The next few jokes were about the one poodle left in Australia having sex with other dogs. Again, she used some salty language, so I had to bail on the clip there, but that was pretty funny. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow. Can I interest you in some meatballs made out of mammoth meat? No? All right, hi, I'm Johnny Mac, host of 5 Good News Stories. It's a twice-a-week podcast where I share some upbeat stories like the dog who only will respond to commands if you use an Irish brogue. Or what about the guy who's filling potholes with noodles? Or the woman who, congratulations, she passed her driver's license. Oh, by the way, it was her 960th try. You heard me correctly. It's 5 Good News Stories. Nice, easy way to start your morning. 5 Good News Stories. The number 5 Good News Stories, wherever you get your podcasts.